Test. Pozdrav svima. Drugi dan druženja s Imogen ekipom i njihovim gostima povodom 5. godišnjice Imogen Recordings etikete. Nalazimo se ponovo u Imogen Recording studiju kod Ilije Rudmana. Jučer smo popričali s KLC-om, danas nam je gost DJ Garth. On će nastaviti i večer kao glavni gost večeras u klubu Super. Garth, hello.
Hello, good to be here.
Nice seeing you again. You've been to my show yesterday. So, what have you been doing since yesterday?
Well, I went to the party yesterday, the first night of 2-night Imogen 5-year anniversary party with Kai Alce. It's super nice setup, just a 200-person venue, like nice sound, nice moody lights. So I had a dance for an hour, and then I went and slept because I needed to catch up on my jet lag.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any time to walk around the city?
Well, today we just went for a nice. We didn't walk, but we drove to a nice restaurant, El Toro. Had a good meal.
American style drive-bys.
Right. Yeah,
okay.
It's good.
For those who don't know much about you, can you introduce yourself?
God, that's a broad one. My name's DJ Garth. I've been a DJ for 30 years. I'm an Englishman who moved to San Francisco, kind of not deliberately to spread acid house sound system culture, but that's kind of how it turned out. As soon as I got there, I invited some of my friends from, the rave scene that I'd met over in England, and they came and joined me right away. You don't invite English people to come and stay if you don't want them to show up because they're going to come, right? So I've been a DJ for 30 years. I had a record label, Greyhound Recordings, and I've lived in California ever since.
Yeah, so life brought you to San Francisco, and then you started the scene practically, moving acid house, as you said, to America. How did it all happen at first?
How did it happen at first? Well, it was very small at first. I came over with a love of the acid house music, and it wasn't really being played in San Francisco. There were some clubs, obviously. The gay crowd knew about house music, so that's where we would go to hear our house music. But what they were missing, I thought, was the kind of renegade, let's just take a sound system outside and do it and just see what happens style. So what we started doing was these full moon parties every month for free in illegal spaces on beaches and parks and stuff like that. And we'd break the locks if we had to, and it was very raw and lawless, but it engendered a lot of love in the scene because it was free. And so for 6 years, every month, full moon, rain or shine, we'd be lugging speakers down these cliffs, having an all-night dance party. So that was different.
So moving to San Francisco, and you obviously needed to find a job or something to earn some money, and you did free parties. How did you cope with that?
Well, we immediately started throwing club parties as well. So Wicked started off in the basement of this club. The only set that we could get was after 2 a.m., after they'd already made their money on the alcohol crowd. They said, well, if you want to bring in a sound system at 2 a.m., I guess you could have the basement. So we're like, perfect, So we slept all day. We invited our friends. We brought a smoke machine in and a sound system, and we had 300 people going nuts until about noon.
So you earned money in clubs, and then you did free raves.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the scene kind of blew up really quickly around us because obviously it was an exciting time. The music was new. Suddenly there were other people got on board that wanted to throw bigger parties. So we were always booked. Myself, Yana, Thomas, and Marko, the DJs, were booked at all the bigger ones as well. So I actually was making good money within a couple of years.
So you guys were pretty well accepted in the States. They wasn't seeing you as, this Brit's coming here.
No, we were really welcomed with open arms. It was beautiful.
Yeah. What was it like in San Francisco?
It was cheap, actually. It was not an expensive city at that time. There'd been a big earthquake in 1989. So, that drove the rents down. There was no .com kind of scene yet. There was none of that, internet startup, money. So it was kind of a city that needed to have a resurgence. It was a hotbed of disco, in the 70s, and unfortunately a lot of those people died of AIDS. So when we got there, it was the aftermath of that. We could pick up like these amazing disco and acid house, well, mostly disco record collections for super cheap, for like, $4 for $1 and stuff like that, because the DJs had died of AIDS. There was some sadness there, and the people that owned the old disco record shops, you could tell they were emaciated. Their faces were like, you know, they'd lost sort of 50 pounds in the, you know, since their youthful disco days. They looked like old men, but they were really only they were younger than I am now, you know. So there was a passing of the baton, if you like. They embraced what we did because they knew that we were furthering dance culture, and so they supported us. Some of them would come to our gigs. Yeah, it was nice.
But at first, you had a regular job. I read somewhere that the guys came to your doorstep and said, "Okay, quit this stuff and start DJing."
Well, I had one job when I left college. I got a degree in business in London. I got one job. I worked for a year in London, and pretty much hated the job every day. Working 9 to 5 in a suit, it wasn't for me.
It wasn't hard to decide to.
It wasn't hard to decide at all. And while I was working in London, I was going out clubbing all the time. That was my thing. So I'd just go out. And
When did you start going out in London? And how was it in London back then?
Oh, London was great. Even before Acid House, there was a strong kind of warehouse party scene with Family Function, and Soul to Soul, and stuff like that. So it was soul, hip hop, and rare groove mostly. So I'd go to those parties. I was a teenager.
It was mid-80s, or?
That was the late 80s. In the mid-80s, I was a punk. So I was a sort of post-punk in 84, 85. I had a mohawk, and I used to go and see bands like The Cure and Susie and The Cults and all that stuff for super cheap for like £5, you know, in those days. Pill, New Model Army, you know. So I was into that. Then I got into dance music with hip-hop, and then from hip-hop, house music. I never really looked back after that.
When you mentioned the punk and the whole rock scene, a lot of DJs and producers have backgrounds in punk and guitar music. What do you comment on this?
I love it, and I love the fusion of the two. You know, I find dance music's a lot more interesting when there's some live instrumentation in there. So, yeah, I love it when I hear, you know, a rock style guitar in a track. In fact, you'll hear a bunch of that tonight. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to play one track for start?
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have something from this period or newer tracks?
I've just got a few Wicked records with me. Some of the stuff I did, some other things on the label, and I've got a couple of other tracks that I didn't make.
Cool. Let's take a listen to one record. Poslužit ćemo kao jučer pokoju ploču u selekciji našeg gosta. Garth je ponio 5-6 ploča, možda ih sve odslušamo, ko zna. Inače, dok Garth stavlja ploču, naravno ja vas sve pozivam i večeras u klub Super, Katran. Jučer je bilo odlično, stvarno meni iskreno jedan od najboljih Imogen tuluma do sad. Atmosfera, bomba, sound bomba, čagica je trajala sve do sitnih sati, kak se veli, tako da nemojte propuštati večeras. Slušamo Garthovu selekciju. back. Garth, what was this track? Few words about it.
It was. I was just given it in Denver actually, and I'm terrible with track names. Lost something.
But we have a psychedelic moment in the track.
They gave it to me because they knew that that is my style. It's like, it's rock and rave, I guess.
You like the psychedelic touch in music.
Psychedelic, yeah. So it's electronic elements, obviously, with the live elements. That's a good record.
We've been talking about UK, London back in the day when you were growing up. It was a hard time to live in Britain at that point, Thatcher time. And can you tell me a bit about that time?
Well, it wasn't all hard. It was cheaper, right? It was a lot less expensive to live in London than it is now. So I went to college, and the government actually helped pay for my rent, and I didn't have to pay to go to college. So it wasn't that hard. So I'm there, and I'm working, in the evening, and I'm I'm going to college learning business, and then on the weekends and sometimes in the week I'd go clubbing, and the music was amazing. So, but there was an edge there. There were these break-in parties, as I was saying, and I started following a crew called Tonka Sound System, which Harvey was the biggest DJ with, and they just kind of changed everything. It changed my whole outlook on what was possible.
There was a big sound system culture in UK.
There was.
Yeah. Did it come from Jamaica? How did it come?
Yeah. I think it was like reggae sound systems. Yeah, and I remember going up to Brixton when I was very young, just for the day, for like a Save the GLC concert or whatever, and they had the Damned and some big acts playing. I think they even had like Sting at one point and Sade, but there was also these reggae sound systems. Shaka sounds, Jar Shaka and stuff like that. And of course those guys ended up making some early house music too, with Addis Ababa, Melancholy Man, and Shut Up and Dance records. It was kind of an offshoot from that. There was a lot of influences going on, and we took that influence with us to San Francisco that perhaps they didn't have.
But let's stay for a bit in UK.
Sure.
There was a whole big culture of free raves, illegal raves, and it started to be a problem for government. They started raiding it.
That's right. Yeah, a couple of years later, I think in 1989, they introduced something. What was it called? Basically, they banned the criminal justice bill. They banned 10 people gathering, listening to repetitive beats. I mean, are you kidding me? Right? People have been listening to repetitive beats since they were sitting in a cave trying to stay warm, right? But this was suddenly illegal. So yeah, we headed to somewhere with a far more relaxed attitude. And when we got to San Francisco, of course, no one even knew what a rave was yet. So the cops would come to our parties, and they'd wonder what the hell we were doing at like 4 a.m. outside. And so we would just have a little permit. We'd pass it to them, or we'd tell them that we were a church group. This was part of our religious ceremony. We like to just dance in nature. And they were like, okay, we're different, but okay, we're going to do the rounds. We'll come back. If you guys would have cleared up, that'd be great.
Yeah, if you have a religion in USA, it's easier. There's many there.
Yeah. You get a tax write-off.
So you mentioned Tonka Sound System. Can you tell me how it influenced you, your relationship with DJ Harvey?
Sure. I mean, Harvey was one of 3 DJs that used to do a monthly party at the Zap in Brighton on a Monday. So every Monday, we'd all come down from London. They'd come from Liverpool. They'd come from all over the country for this Tonka night. And it only went till 2 o'clock. But everybody would line up and get in there at like 7 or 8 p.m. And it would be Rev opening up, then Chocky playing a lot of acid house. And then Harvey would come in with this sort of disco stuff at the end. And it was just an incredible night. At the end of the night, I remember they'd light up, they'd turn all the lights on. It looked like a football stadium going off. Like you'd see fists in the air, everybody just going nuts. And they'd open up the doors to the club, to the beach, and people would be walking past the promenade looking in like, what is going on in there? And that's exactly how we all felt in there too. Like, what is going on in here? It was something to do with the psychedelics that we were taking, and the music, and the whole thing felt new and exciting. We were wearing different clothes. We kind of lost that pretentious attitude that hip hop had, where it was about standing around looking cool with your posse.
But you had a hip hop moment also.
I did, but I wasn't deep into it. But I used to go clubbing at the WAG and stuff like that. I liked hip hop in the early '80s and mid '80s. It was cool. by the late 80s, the got gangster, and there was no comparison with house music that was all about the love, right? You felt the love. You'd come into a room, you'd be hugging strangers on the dance floor, having a transformative, moment. So I never look back.
So the connection of acid house movement and the hippie movement.
Yeah, it was. I think that's. I think that's maybe what worked in San Francisco, is that the hippie thing never really died. The Grateful Dead was this sort of legendary band that were touring for 30 years. And was still touring when we got there, and so we actually would set up our sound system in the parking lot at the Grateful Dead concert, and get a lot of the people that they wouldn't even go into the concert. They couldn't afford the concert, but they would travel with them, tour with them, sell their drugs and their brownies and their food and stuff in the parking lot. So they would come in and they would come and dance with us there. So that's how we brought some of those people into our world, and they just loved us because we were. Their thing was old, right? I mean, the Grateful Dead were about 60 at that point. Mm-hmm. We were 20 and we had loads of energy.
So you brought sound system from UK to America, right?
Yes, we didn't have our own sound system at that point. In '94, we got a 15K turbo sound rig, custom designed by Tony Andrews. Yeah.
For the people that don't know him, a few words about Tony.
Yeah, Tony
He's a big legend.
Yeah, he's a legendary sound engineer who started Turbo Sound and then Blue Box and then Function One as well. He's the man.
And he's a perfectionist. I saw him at one festival, still going and rigging on his own.
That's it. Yeah.
How much did it cost, the first sound system?
I think it was $70,000.
Nice.
Yeah.
In today's terms, it would be much more probably.
Yeah. It took us a while. So we didn't take any money from our parties for the first 2 or 3 years. We just saved everything. Bought the sound system.
So you shipped it to San Francisco?
Yes.
And how did you started using it?
We started using it by taking it to Burning Man. Burning Man had been going for a couple of years. Burning Man is now a huge festival. They get like 70,000 people there. But in those days, there was like maybe 4,000. So we took our sound system out there and sort of blew everybody away with the first real outdoor sound system. And the sound system was perfect for the desert because it's meant to be outdoors, with no walls or anything for it to reflect off. It just traversed the entire playa. You could hear it crystal clear a mile away. And in those days, you could drive your car all over that playa. There was no sort of rules then at all. So it was a really crazy, lawless party. I remember people just kind of driving by with trucks, like firing off guns just for kicks, and like crazy stuff, nuts. So that was super fun. We did that for a couple of years until we realized how harsh it was on the sound system. It was like full of this like foul dust that we couldn't get out. So we stopped taking it. And then we also toured in a bus with it. We had some friends with a 1947 Greyhound bus.
I saw the picture.
Yeah.
Very
It was
nice.
such a beautiful bus. It had been a Baptist church group's bus, and then it was sitting in a scrapyard for like 5 years. And my friends found it, and they cleaned it up, and they pulled all the seats out, and sort of put new seating in, and a new sound system, and new floor, and new engine, and everything. And then we had a tour bus. So then we just traveled the States. There was like 20 of us. We stopped doing the full moon parties because we were exhausted from lugging the speakers down the cliffs. It's work after a while, right?
Yeah.
It's work, and your friends stop coming after 5 years. They're like, well, we'll see you next time. So it just got to be more hard work. So then we did an annual tour in the bus and had a great time.
Wicked Crew, we mentioned it, and we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Your situation in San Francisco during the years, except the full moon parties, still in clubs. How did it evolve during the years?
Well, as I said, it started off free outdoors. Like the very first week after that, we threw our first kind of late night, underground party. So it would be like 100, 200 people, small sound system. After a couple of years, we got pretty big. We got a much bigger space. It was the King Street Garage, and then Townsend, and we could get like 1,000 people in there. And then we had our sound system, I told you, and we toured with that. So there's 4 DJs. There's myself, Yena, Marky, and Thomas. Yeah. So Thomas has moved more than any of the others. He went to New York in the late 90s, I guess, and kind of helped start that electro clash movement with his band ARE Weapons. He's always He's always moving. Yena's still in San Francisco, and I moved to LA about 9 years ago.
We didn't mention a community party.
Yeah, community party was at the same time. We started off doing community and Wicked at the same time, and it was amazing. It was a Wednesday night, so it was only really locals. But at the height of its sort of popularity, I guess we'd have like maybe 900,000 people in there, and it'd go
On
to
Wednesday night.
Yeah, on a Wednesday night till 4 a.m. And so that was amazing. It was myself, Yena, and my roommate Simon. So yeah, community. That was a good one.
Yeah,
10 years.
When we spoke to Kai yesterday, he also said that they had Tuesday parties, which is totally insane in Zagreb. It's unimaginable to
Right.
have these numbers. Do you think it's possible these days? Does it happen in San Francisco?
No, it doesn't happen. I think in those days it was a lot less expensive to live there. So most people that you met were young people. They were like students, or they were strippers, or they were DJs, or they were artists. You know, very few people had 9-to-5 jobs that I met anyway. So there was a community of people there that could make it work. I can't see it working now. It's like way too expensive. It's $4,000 now average rent in San Francisco.
Wow.
So
Okay, Garth, should we play another one?
Yeah, let's play another one.
Let's play another record. Još jednom pozivam da nam se večeras pridružite u Superu na 5. godišnjici Imogen Recordings labela. Druga večer, a jučer je bilo stvarno odlično uz KLC-a, vrtio je čovjek preko 4 sata. To se možda desi i večeras sa Garthom. Imate stvarno lijepu priliku doživjeti dva velikana house glazbe u Zagrebu ovih dana, tako da ne propuštite to nikako. Malo smo se zapričali u beku, nemojte se ljutit. Ovo je bila nova stvar koju je isproducirao Garth. Garth, this is your newest track.
Yeah,
after a while.
Yeah, exactly. First record in 10 years, actually.
Really?
It's called Hospital Corners, and I did it with Anthony Mansfield, who's a good friend in San Francisco.
You released it on your label?
It's on Wicked Records, yeah.
Cool.
I'm not actually running the label this time. I used to run a Wicked Records before I did my Greyhound. So now it's Yena running it, who's one of my partners.
But you still have an influence.
Yeah, it's Wicked Records. It's Wicked Records.
Cool. So production-wise, you have a lot of stuff behind you. You did a lot of remixing. What do you like the most?
It's actually really fun remixing if you like the original. I think that's the key for me. I don't like it when you haven't even heard the original and it's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it just cause. And then sometimes you might only have like a hi-hat or something like that to work with. That's stupid. I don't like that. But if you're remixing somebody like Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction and you get that vocal to work with, or Faithless or something like that, which I got to do, then it's awesome. Or Yabby You. Super old school reggae guy. So yeah, I had a lot of fun remixing the Tribe Called Quest as well. Yeah,
you have a lot of influences from dub, from psychedelic. Obviously, we talked about it.
Yeah, I like all sorts of music.
You like to mix it up with electronic music.
I like to mix it up. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's interesting to force yourself as a DJ to try and mix different records together. I love mixing reggae records together, reggae 12 inches, because most reggae DJs don't actually beat mix at all.
Yeah.
They will, have an effect or whatever.
They had one turntable.
Right, exactly. So they'll do an effect or they'll toast, they'll talk, right? So it's actually really cool when you're mixing reggae records together like house music, because they're fluid, the beats are moving all over the place, but when you lock that in, it's just so psychedelic. And also with rock, it's way more challenging because it's not always syncopated, but it's I find that interesting.
So all these influences, Britain is full of them, but you also traveled a lot. You moved around America. You lived in Atlanta. You lived in San Francisco, now LA.
Right.
How all of that influenced you as a musician?
That's a good question. Well, obviously, growing up in England as a teenager was my most influential years of my life. I mean, you couldn't avoid music. We had Top of the Pops every Thursday night, and because it's a small country like yours is, if a track's big in the clubs, it's gonna be suddenly in the charts or the national charts. So we were exposed to like really edgy, cool music, I think. All through the 70s and 80s, so I'm really thankful for that. My mother married an American and moved to Atlanta in 1980, so I went to school there for a year. And I remember I had a boombox and I would listen to the radio station every night, and my favorite radio station was Z103, I think it was called, and it was African American, it was all black. So they would just play nothing but funk. So I'd never even heard funk before, but I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, right? So I would make these tapes and come back. When I moved back to England in 1981, I was the only one that had any kind of music like this. Everybody was listening to the Specials, stuff like that, no one had an American funk. So so that was an influence. And then when I started DJing myself later, I tracked down some of those records that were on those mixtapes that people still really weren't playing, and would mix them in with the house. Super fun.
So UK at that point was more influenced by Jamaica than by American music, or?
I don't know about that. I think the scene that I grew up in, the punk scene, was very tightly associated with the reggae scene. Like the venues that I would go to in Reading were owned by these Caribbean people that would do like reggae nights, but they obviously weren't making enough money just doing the reggae nights, so then they'd let the punks in, or the goths or whatever on the weekends, and so there was a really nice cross-pollination going on. And it was all quite new then, right? The West Indian population hadn't really been in England that long, so they still had these really thick accents and stuff. So it was just it was really cool. It was like a melting pot, but it wasn't always harmonious. Like sometimes it could get dangerous. It'd be edgy, right? The skinheads, like they were like the enemy of all of us. They were just like bastards that always seemed to be lurking around the corner that wanted to fight everybody. They hated the punks, the rastas, everybody. So it was easy to move to America, actually, for me. I didn't like the violence that was kind of sometimes there in the English scene before Acid House hit and everybody was all loved up.
Yeah.
In America, even though it has a reputation for being a very violent place because of guns and stuff like that, you never see a fist fight.
Okay.
You never see a fist fight because
You see a gun.
you don't even, well, you don't see a
Joking.
gun, right? Yeah, but I mean that's why you don't see a fist fight, right?
So you moved to San Francisco, which is a more leftist, liberal city.
Yeah.
How did you like it?
I just fell in love with it, from the get-go. I loved the easygoing, laid-back attitude. That there was still, the gays were very comfortable there. They'd taken over the Castro, probably 10 years prior, and they're rainbow flags everywhere, and so they had this incredible freedom there, which they've never had anywhere else, really, right? Anywhere.
So UK didn't have it at that point?
Not to the point like that San Francisco did. San Francisco was like, first of all, the sun's out every day. They've got their gyms. They've got these outdoor cafes. It's like people just walking around with their tops off, they're all ripped, and it's like this is pretty cool. You guys are actually like really comfortable in your skin here. You're not having to hide it. And like in England, sure, there's a lot of gay people, but they're in the closet, right?
Okay.
Or they were, for sure. So I had plenty of friends that were gay that would never admit it. So it was just totally different. So there was that, and there was the hippie psychedelic thing. It was still very much alive. You'd go to Golden Gate Park and people would be just dropping acid in the day. It was just cool. It was open. I loved it.
So
Still love it.
You're mentioning acid, so we have to touch the drug component of the whole acid house and the whole movement. Can you compare it to these days?
Well, I've changed the name for some reason to Molly from E, right? But it's basically, in America they called it X. They called it X. They never even called it E. But there's no doubt that drug had a huge influence on the love vibe. Just like in the 60s, people dropping acid for the first time had their first summer of love. We had a second summer of love in like 88 or 89, I think it was, where everybody was loved up. In London, everybody was wearing white. They were wearing these like Afghan hats. It was a kind of a world-embracing sort of moment, right? And Nelson Mandela had just been freed, and the Berlin Wall had come down. So there was a feeling like, wow, there's optimism in the air. We're going to change the world. It felt really good for a bit.
Can you mention a few biggest clubs at that time in San Francisco?
1015 Folsom was the one where we did Community, and that was the biggest club at the time. There was Townsend as well, that had a nice Richard Long sound system in it, which was the same designer who did the Paradise Garage and stuff. So it was like a real New York sort of sensibility with rotary mixers, incredible sound treatment of the room and stuff like that. Nice wooden dance floor, proper. There was the Trocadero Transfer, which had been a legendary disco club. That was closed down actually by the time we got there, but they would still open it up. So we did Wicked there a few times. There'd be like, maybe 20 disco balls hanging over this lovely wooden sunken dance floor. And, you could still feel the energy in that place of what must have been the most epic sort of disco parties.
And the story about Colossus?
Colossus?
Yeah.
Yeah, Colossus was a really big gay night in 1015 Folsom. My only story there was I only went there a couple of times when I first went to San Francisco. It's the only place that we could hear house music. And I was a little bit shocked because I, came into the dance floor to get my groove on, and then there'd be like gay porn videos play, and I was like, well, this is different. Okay, if I focus over here, maybe I'll just get into the music.
Maybe we could start that in Croatia.
But then at some point you got to go to the restroom, right? So I went to the bathroom, and there's like 20 guys fucking in the toilets.
Really?
Yeah. So it was an eye opener. It wasn't really my scene. It wasn't, but the music was great. But it was different. It was still different from what we did, a few months later, because the DJ was way up in the gods, kind of up above.
Mm-hmm.
It was just very different. It was so different from the house music scene, in England.
Mm-hmm.
So it was ripe for us to do our thing at that very venue. That's where we did community.
Mm-hmm. So what was the type of the crowd that was following you guys, the Wicked crew?
Well, it was, I had a bunch of English friends that came and joined me. So there was this kind of like acid house crew from England. There was the young gay crowd that really liked the music. There was some Grateful Dead hippie types.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some strippers, and there were some artists, and some people that were in the club scene that were ready for something fresh. They, like the security and stuff were interested in what we were doing, would come, to our parties,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice. And there was just a real feeling of genuine community. Like we would all support each other. We'd all go to each other's parties.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Nice.
Monday morning at the end up, sure, we'll be there. Like everybody would support. It was really an idealistic time for a while.
Yeah, for a while, and then it commercialized a bit. It was commercialized. A lot of big clubs started copying the concept, right?
Yeah. Some other clubs started. Some big rave promoters stepped in and kind of tried to take things into
Cash in their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How did it change the whole situation?
Well, suddenly we had out-of-town DJs. Up until then, we hadn't had any out-of-town DJs for the first 2 or 3 years. It was just locals. And that changed everything, right? So suddenly, DJs on the lineup that nobody knows or cares about, but we're going to go because we've heard about him in a magazine or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it becomes less personal, and their fees are astronomical. So then, sometimes the warm-up DJs would then get like an even lower fee than they would have done before because the out-of-town DJs now got all the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trickle-down economics, which is BS and doesn't actually work at all.
Mm-hmm. But it happens these days at the largest scale. Big festivals putting fees up. It's almost impossible to book some people. What do you think about it? The whole industry these days.
I don't know. I mean, the industry's the industry, right? It's going to do its own thing. It doesn't matter what I think about it.
Mm-hmm. You never wanted to be a part of the commercial side of the...
I mean, it's nice to get paid, but just not interesting. Not interesting to me. Mm-hmm. I like the way it was. I mean, call me idealistic, but I like a smaller party, family vibes, people generally caring about each other and not exploitative pricing. I like vinyl, only vinyl. Mm-hmm. I can't stand laptops. I can't stand CDs.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like to watch DJs DJing these days. I used to love watching DJs, right? Or dancing to DJs. But now if I look up and I see an Apple, then it's like, it's a total turn-off. And even looking at somebody scrolling through the CD things, it's like you may as well be watching somebody on checking their email. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Not to be rude, because I know that's 99% of DJs now, but, I think they're missing out.
So did you have, as you guys were all from Great Britain that came to San Francisco, you had a crew. Yeah. Did you involve some other guys from America in the inner circle of the crew?
In the very early days?
Yeah.
There was a DJ called Ernie Munson, who was part of our original Wicked lineup, he was a hip-hop DJ and a disco DJ, and he had some really nice house records, and he was really good at it, but people didn't really care at that point. He wasn't booking. So when we got to town, he was like, oh man, you're my people. So we'd hang out, we'd listen to records and stuff like that, and we realized, okay, this guy's one of us. So he was part of the first 2 or 3 Wickeds, but ultimately it doesn't, it's a band. Even though you're DJs, it's like there's 4 of you, you've all got 4 girlfriends, that's 8 people. It's like it's a marriage with 8 people. It better be good, right? So unfortunately, he didn't make the cut long term. And somehow we've been going 29 years, the rest of us. And a lot of the time we do feel like we hate each other, but the love is way deeper than the hate. So So, we soldier through. There were others. I mean, we brought in Doc Martin from Los Angeles to come and play with us originally. He was one of the first house music DJs. And then when we had a bigger budget to play with, we brought in DJ Pierre in '94. We brought in Shay Demir, Kai Alcé's cousin. He was the second guest. We had Roger Sanchez. We brought Louis Vega. We brought Francois K. Quite a lot of people that we really respected. We wanted to bring in people that we wanted to hear. Of
course.
Right.
Did anyone...
Mike Dunn, I think.
Did anyone copy your concept, like start their own sound system?
Yeah.
To be your competition, or...
They did. And that's good, right? That's the sincerest form of, flattery, I guess, is when someone just tries to copy.
Anyone worth mentioning?
Well, I'm going to mention Sunset Sound System because they've done such an amazing job of actually still doing it. And I wouldn't say that they copied us, but they certainly borrowed from, what we were doing by taking a sound system outdoors. I think their genius was that they did it in the day. So they would do like a Sunday party. And it's lovely weather, right, in San Francisco. So why not? So it's, to this day, they just had their 25-year anniversary, and they're still getting nice crowds. And they do boat parties, and they help out with the Love International, I think, lineup here in Croatia. So yeah, they're doing great.
You mentioned you're faithful to vinyl. You have a big collection. Let's play another track from the collection.
Okay.
Još jednom pozovem na večerašnji Tulum u Super Super, dakle druga večer proslave 5. godišnjice Imogen Recordings sa početkom u 21 sat. Večeras je za zagrijavanje zadužen Antonio Žuža, nakon njega naravno glavni gost DJ Garth i na kraju Imogen Sound System. Slušamo još jednu stvar u selekciji DJ Gartha. Evo nas nazad, popričali smo s Garthom o njegovoj čitavoj karijeri. Garth, we went through your career, through your life.
We did.
Yeah, we could talk a lot more, but you played another track from Wicked Records. It's a new one.
Yeah, this is Tranquil Elephantizer Trisha. It was a dedication to one of our original Wicked members, this lovely lady Trisha, who died too young, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a good one. It's Wicked Records number 7, I think.
So we were chatting while the record was playing about Wicked. You were releasing like 2-3 records a year, not too much. What's the concept of the label these days?
I think it's just to put the Wicked sound back on the map, because a lot of the music that's been coming out lately is actually very similar to what we were originally pushing, which is this kind of deeper acid house techno. Anyway, it's not me running the label this time. It's my partner Yena and Kelly Cook, and they're doing a nice job. Just two or three re-releases a year. I did another remix actually of Strafe Set It Off, which was a sort of classic electro track that I grew up with, and I made that record actually about 15 years ago. But so that was the first one that came out when we restarted, the Wicked revival, I guess, like 2 years ago.
What's happening with Greyhound?
Greyhound's dormant right now, flaccid, but I might revive it. I'm not sure yet.
And Golden Goose?
Thank you.
What's up with Golden Goose?
Golden Goose again. It's just it was fun. It was fun. I was playing a lot of disco and rock edits at that time. I mean, I'd always played disco and rock, but like there was a time when I was just like I'd had enough of house music for a while and techno. So Yena and I did a night called Back to Back where we would just play left field music, and it was super fun. So I thought I'd start a label just to help that really. So it was fodder for the dance floor, right? So they were just edits, other people's music. We had 8 singles, and I think never sold more than 800 copies. It wasn't a business venture; it was for a bit of fun. I don't think I'll do Golden Goose again.
We've been talking about San Francisco a lot, but then in 2011 you moved to LA.
I did, yeah. I moved to LA, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person that would move to LA. There's a bit of rivalry between San Francisco and LA. It's stupid, actually. LA people don't care about San Francisco, but San Francisco people feel like LA is like it's LA, So anyway, I moved to LA, and it's been great. It's been really fun. I've been doing other stuff there.
Club scene in LA?
The club scene in LA, I wouldn't recommend particularly. It's kind of like Las Vegas style bottle service, pretty cheesy. But the underground scene is really good in LA. It's better than San Francisco. Downtown LA, there's a lot of warehouses. It's pretty run down there. So it's all under the radar. But it's strong. Like
You play a lot?
I don't play a lot. I play probably once a month. But always good. I play with these people called Midnight Lovers. And they've got a very young, sort of eclectic, fashion, hipster, arty crowd that it's great. I don't even know where they come from. Because if I do, like an old school kind of crowd, it's going to be, people my age who are really enthusiastic for their music still, but they might not look quite as pretty as they used to 20 years ago, right? Yeah. So it's really fun to play for these people, and they dig it because they don't even know who we are really, and they get really excited about the vinyl because no one else plays vinyl, so they're like, I can just see how excited they get. It's really fun.
Now you're living near Hollywood, and you started acting.
I did. I didn't mean to start acting. That's not why I moved to LA, but I was talking to a filmmaker there about, he wanted to do a documentary about my DJ life that never ended up happening, probably because it's not that interesting of a story, really, right? Watching a DJ with his head down playing records, I don't know. But he said, look, I've got this feature film I'm doing right now, and it's a rock and roll film, and I need the record label guy, like the record producer. He's an arsehole. He exploits the band. He realizes that they'll be worth more dead than alive, and I think you'd be perfect for it. He's an arsehole, just like you. So I said yes, and it won an award at the New York Indie Film Fest, and kind of got me all excited. So I've been doing it ever since. I've made like 30 films now, and commercials and everything. And
So you're doing castings a lot?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you're a DJ, even if you're working a lot, right, you're only working maybe 2 nights a week. So you've got 5 days a week. That's an awful lot of time to be doing something. If you're not running a record label and you don't have a job, I haven't had a job since 1990. So I audition every day. Sometimes I audition 3 times a
Really?
day. Yeah, that's an actor's job. You audition, and you don't just show up and just wing it, right? You have to learn your lines. You have to get into character. So that is my job, auditioning. And then, maybe once a month I might get a booking. But it's been a really good year. I've done 3 feature films and 3 commercials this year and a music video. So yeah, it's
So
fun.
you are pretty successful in music and DJ world. Then you come to acting, and maybe sometimes you're not as much successful because you're starting.
Sure.
How does it feel?
It's humbling, but it feels good. Yeah, it feels good. I actually I don't know if I like it. It's a bit of a bitter taste being humbled, but I think it's better for your soul to be humble. And when you're acting in LA and you're a nobody, there's you have to be humble. There's your arrogance is completely misplaced. Hollywood owes nobody anything, and they know that. And so you have to come in there and just be really easy to work with and really professional. You have to be off book, and you have to just know what to do on set and everything. So and I love that. It's challenging.
You kept your British accent living in America?
Yeah, I don't take elocution lessons to keep my British accent or anything, but it's interesting. It never went away. Doesn't hurt.
Do you have to use the American one on these kinds of...
If I do an American accent, it comes out a bit John Wayne. It's you just fall back to the old Western. So it's either Western or it's Southern. I can do that. But and I've done a few Southern roles. But yeah, I do different accents. I've done an Australian, I've done an Irish, Scottish, German. They're usually comedic.
Cool. Do you remember your first gig?
I do. It wasn't much of a story. It was at the student union in London. My friends demanded that I DJ for them because I was always the guy with records and tapes and stuff, and I didn't know what the hell to do. But they had a setup there, so I went and I kind of, I was terrified. I remember I couldn't breathe. I was so nervous. But somehow, 50 people, drunk people, were having a really good time. So that was my first DJ experience. I didn't DJ again for 2 years until I came to San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The only one in UK.
That was it. Yeah.
Wow.
That was it.
Some memorable events during your career?
Well, very early on at Community, this party that we did on the Wednesday night, midweek, they gave us the club only because my roommate was a bar back at the club. They're like, okay, you can have the gold room, the side room on a Wednesday night, whatever. We've got nothing else going on. And when we got there, prepared to do this little gold room for 50 people, the club owner goes, you know what, if you want, there's nothing in the main room tonight. You can have the main room. Knock yourselves out. So we went into the main room. It's like a spaceship, right? I mean, they've got it's just the most incredible sound system, great big clips, horns, a roof that we could pull back during the night, and a sort of laser that came down on the dance floor and hovered over everybody. So we just went nuts. We played with all the toys. There was only 50 of us, but we had the best night ever. And within 3 months of that, I remember playing C.C. Rogers' All Join Hands records. It was a really nice deep house anthem, very positive, uplifting message. And there was probably 100 people at the club that night. It was the last song, and everybody held hands. They all spread out around the club. They all joined hands, and they started spinning around in a circle as this laser thing was down above us and all the lights were on and the roof was open. And I was like, this is just amazing. I'd only been DJing about 3 months. So, yeah, one of many fun experiences.
If you had to put a price on your record collection, what would it be? And you have to give it all.
You have to give it all. Yeah. That's brutal, isn't it? Money. I don't think... it'd have to be a lot, wouldn't it? It'd have to be a lot. And they're records, so I could find them all again, right? Well, I think I'd sell them for $1 million.
Cool, $1 million sounds
Yeah, $1
good.
million would really help.
Yeah. Cool.
Anybody interested out there?
Yeah. Okay, Garth. It was very nice speaking to you.
It was fun.
I wish you a lovely night tonight.
Thanks, I'm really excited.
I hear you might play a longer set tonight.
Maybe 4 hours, yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
What will it look like?
You have to be there to see, I guess. Yeah, it's going to be dark lighting anyway. It's usually what it sounds like over what it looks like. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited. Imogen Recordings, 5-year anniversary.
Some of your future plans for the end. Do you have any
The end of
big
what?
plans?
My life?
No, for this conversation.
Future plans. Well, Oh, future plans. Oh yeah, I'm playing in Thailand next month. That should be fun.
Cool.
Haven't played Thailand for a while. Wonder Fruit Festival. Yeah, should be good. But I just take one day at a time. What's great about the acting is that it's when one thing slows down, another thing picks up. Bit of voiceover work, bit of acting work, bit of DJing work. Go in the studio again. You know, I like to do a few different things at this point.
Cool. I wish you luck.
Cheers.
Nice having you in Zagreb. Nice seeing you. Nice talking to you. And I'm looking forward to the set tonight.
Me too, man.
Let's play the last record for this.
Est-ce que